So we are finally getting some good news. And this is good news that is going to impact us here in the United States and abroad. What we are now hearing is that we are getting closer and closer to a massive deal. And I'm going to explain what this deal is, how it's going to impact you, and how it's going to really impact the rest of the world as well. So make sure you stick around for this entire video, and I'll explain exactly what is going on. So again, the American people are looking like pawns in this major war. Now, why? Are we the pawns for other countries, or are we the pawns for the people here in the United States? Well, here's what's happening. As of right now, we are getting very close to a deal. And this is actually coming from the Hamas chief. He is saying that a truce deal with Israel is getting very close. But what this means is that, okay, Hamas and Israel are getting close to a deal on a possible ceasefire. That's good news. But this is what we're hearing here in the United States, is that if Hamas and Israel come close to a ceasefire and they agree on that, then the likelihood of the $14.3 billion that was passed in the House of Representatives and is sitting in the Senate, this is more likely if there's a ceasefire. And so right now, the Biden administration has been part of the negotiations a little bit. It's mainly from Qatar. They're the ones negotiating, and they're kind of the middleman, the mediator between Hamas and Israel. And the good news here is, okay, if we do see a ceasefire, how much money is the United States going to send Israel? Are we going to send to Ukraine? Are we going to send to Gaza for humanitarian assistance? How much? It could be $160 billion. Okay? It could be a lot of money. But if we do see this, guess what? That means any money that is passed that goes to Israel, Gaza, and Ukraine is likely going to come out of other key priorities here in the United States. So again, good news for Israel, but potentially bad news for us here in the United States. Let's keep getting into it, because there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now. Now, here's what one Hamas official has told Al Jazeera TV, that negotiations were centered on how long a truce would last, okay, how long the ceasefire would go for, arrangements for delivery of aid into Gaza, and details of the exchange of captives. And according to reports, the term of the deal could be reached within hours. That was from this morning. Here's where things could be broken up. This is where things could really break down. Because according to multiple reports, the mastermind behind the Hamas attacks, he's personally handling the hostage negotiations. And this is where some say that we cannot have the mastermind behind this handling the negotiations. Because how do we feel? Do we feel like he's actually going to go through with it? Well, possibly. But according to Netanyahu, he says he's hoping for good news very soon, and that this deal should actually come to fruition. Now, I want to explain the details of this deal first, and then I want to get to what we are hearing from our lawmakers here in the United States. Okay? Here's the details right here. So there's a couple different parts. Okay? It says, as part of the hostage deal, Israel would release 3 Palestinian prisoners held in Israel for each Israeli hostage released by Hamas. So it's a 3-to-1 exchange. Interesting. It says in the first phase of this 2-phase deal, Hamas is expected to release 50 Israeli women and children held in Gaza, while Israel is expected to release around 150 Palestinian prisoners, which are mostly women and minors. Okay? It says the release of hostages and prisoners in the first phase of the deal would take place over 4 days of a ceasefire in Gaza. All right? It says as part of the deal, Israel would allow around 300 aid trucks per day into Gaza from Egypt. In the second phase, Hamas could release up to another 50 Israeli women, children, and elderly. This is Hamas. Okay? They would return to Israel, and they would extend the ceasefire for several more days if they continue to do it. And then Israel would also release Palestinian prisoners at the same rate, the same 3-to-1 ratio. Okay, that's what we know. Those are that's the deal that's been put in place so far. But where things are somewhat getting stuck is, do we agree on a 4-day ceasefire? That's the big one. Is it only going to be a 4-day ceasefire? Because they were negotiating 5. Hamas wanted 5. Israel said we could do 3. And so when Hamas said 5, Israel said no. When Israel said we could do 3, Hamas said no. So now we're at 4, right in the middle. Is this going to work? Well, we're going to find out very soon. But what we do know is that more lawmakers are supporting this deal. They're supporting this ceasefire. And this is actually very big news, because we have heard over the past few days that Congress, when they come back, again, they're on recess right now. They will come back next week. When they come back, if a ceasefire has not yet been agreed to, they will then pressure Israel. You want the $14.3 billion? Well, you have to agree to a ceasefire. This is where things could really blow up in the United States' face. Here's the reason why. We could see negotiators say, okay, if Israel wants the $14.3 billion, the United States will give it to them. But they have to agree to a ceasefire first. Then, if Israel agrees to the ceasefire in exchange that they're hoping for the $14.3 billion from the U.S., guess what? It still has to go through Congress. And if Congress doesn't pass the $14.3 billion, even after Israel agrees to a ceasefire, guess what? The United States is now holding the bag. And Israel's going to look at us like, hey, you made us do this. You said we had to do this. And then, in the end, you didn't follow through with what your deal was, the $14.3 billion. So that's something that has been discussed. Experts also anticipate there's going to be an all-out fight over the next round negotiations for the government funding bill, which has to be passed by January 19th and February 2nd. They believe this is going to happen. They believe that right now, if there is not a ceasefire that's agreed to in Israel, if there is not additional relief sent to Gaza, and we now know that Vladimir Putin is is really planning an all-out attack on Ukraine's capital city. This is going to happen very soon. And so with all this said, the United States has a lot more funding to do. And like I said, we could see $100 to $160 billion in additional funding go out to Israel, Gaza, and Ukraine. And if it does, that means we're pulling money from other essential programs. Now, lawmakers worry that SNAP beneficiaries could really get hurt if there's a delay in government funding, or if we see a cut to certain programs. And I can tell you right now, there's not going to be a cut to Social Security. There won't be a cut to Medicare. We know that. We've already had both parties agree that's not happening. But as far as cuts to food assistance, right, SNAP benefits, or here's another one, WIC. Many people don't know about WIC. It's for women, infant, and children. Okay? But now we're hearing that WIC advocates, they are extremely worried that pretty soon WIC is going to have to turn away applicants. Look at this. It says food aid for low-income mothers, babies becomes spending flashpoint. It says advocates and state administrators fear they may have to begin putting people on wait lists to receive WIC benefits if Congress doesn't increase funding in January. It's not pass funding, it is increase funding. The reason why is because more and more people are going to WIC offices, applying for benefits, getting the benefits. The problem is the funding has stayed level, but the amount of applicants applying is going up. And they need additional funding. As of right now, they don't have it. And so that's a major issue as well. So while we are trying to negotiate this deal between and help between Israel and Hamas, and trying to get humanitarian aid like food, water, fuel, medicine into Gaza, right here at home in the United States, within our border, there's a potential food problem, a nutrition problem that we might not have an answer to. So we'll see what happens there moving forward. Here's another thing I just want to point out. Right now, there's a big issue with the southern border. And we've heard this before. We've seen it all over the news, where there are so many people entering into the United States from the U.S.-Mexico border. All right? Well, what's happening is all these people are coming in, and they're pretty much going around Texas, and the governor from Texas says, no, we don't need you here. We don't want you here. So they send them to another state. A lot of people are being sent to New York. Okay, New York City. Well, New York, we just learned, the mayor of New York is dropping school funding. He has to drop some of this stuff because he needs to go and find money to go and pay for these people, to house them, to feed them, right? Keep them healthy. So he has to drop school funding, police funding, and key infrastructure repairs. And now he's asking New York's wealthy to please donate, increase donations to the state so they can house more immigrants that are being sent up from the southern border. And the reason why this is very important is because we are seeing these negotiations happen, right? We're negotiating this war in Israel, right, in Gaza. We're negotiating with Ukraine. We're negotiating our government funding bill. That's the only one that has a deadline, and that's January 19th. So as we're negotiating all these things, we have to look at what is happening here in the United States. And this is why some people are saying that finally we are starting to see everything come out. And as it does, what are we going to get? What are the American people going to receive? So, as we get more information there, I promise I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates. But that is what we know at this time. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.